How do you make your audition stand out when perhaps hundreds of people are auditioning for the same role that you've set your heart on? What's going to improve your chances of that self-tape you've spent hours working on from ending up on the cutting room floor? That's what we're going to discover today with the help of one of the top acting coaches in the business. Hello and welcome. I'm SAG-AFTRA Executive Vice President Ben Whitehair. Thank you all for joining us for another SAG-AFTRA program on YouTube. We are joined today by American Sign Language interpreters Sharon Pierre-Louis and Mara Basanti Santamaria. As an actor myself, I think I can speak for most of my fellow thespians when I say that I would love a competitive advantage when auditioning for roles. But what is a competitive edge in today's age of self-tape auditions? Is it an expensive camera, fancy lighting, or elaborate backgrounds? Well, we've got a prolific actor who doesn't think it's any of those things. He says the best way to make your audition stand out is the art of specificity. I'd like to introduce everyone to Michael D. Cohen, an actor, director, writer, and acting coach who has racked up an incredible list of credits throughout his impressive career, appearing in dozens of commercials and hit TV shows and films like Modern Family, Two Broke Girls, the George Clooney directed comedy Suburbicon, and the Oscar-nominated picture Whiplash. Michael is also a director, writer, and educator, and teaches acting at his eponymous acting studio in Los Angeles. I know personally that Michael is an amazing human being who absolutely loves actors, this community, and has been supporting them for many, many years. Michael, welcome. Are you ready to get this show on the road? Let's get specific.
Thank you so much, Ben. It's just such a treat to do this for SAG-AFTRA, but also to be with you. We've known each other for a while, and it's nice to get to do this in this context. So thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here. Let's dive in.
Okay. What I'm going to talk to you about today is I call the art of specificity. And it's an approach that I created really for myself and then for my students, because I wanted something that would help me just feel better about the work I was doing as an actor. And so I'm sharing this approach with you. I'm also writing a book that's going to have all this laid out in much greater detail, but I wanted to share with you the basics today. So let's go to the second slide. And what I want to talk about first, and this is what really helps you get into specificity, all right? And I'll talk a bit about what specificity is in a moment. But basically, when we get to an audition or we come to working on an audition or we book a role, there's something that I like to look at as actor agenda versus character agenda. What we come in with in our own bodies, our own minds, our own emotions, whatever's going on for you, I call actor agenda. Whatever's going on for the character in the story is the character agenda. So the degree to which you are focused or experiencing actor agenda is the degree to which you are not going to have a lot of fun in the scene and you're not going to be very specific, right? Versus the opposite, which is the more that you're clear about character agenda and are somehow living that through your body, the more specific you will be. Did I just say that right? Yes. So you're going to be more general the more you're in actor agenda. You're going to be more specific that you are as you are in character agenda. So I want to define for a second what specificity is. And really that's mimicking in our acting what is happening in real life, right? So we're actually creating the illusion of real life through our acting. That's kind of the definition of acting, which in a sense is the definition of specificity. It is how real are we? How believable are we? Now, you can be extraordinarily believable and be in a very broad show. Like I've done a bunch of Nickelodeon shows, very broad in certain ways, but very grounded, very real, right? The shows that work are believable. You basically suspend your disbelief because the actors hopefully are creating very real performances. And so they're specific. There's something about, if you look at the way that you're sitting, I can't see you obviously, but you sitting at home watching this, how are you watching it? How are your legs? You're not sitting here like this, sort of stiff and frozen. You're engaged, hopefully engaged, and you're showing very specific signs of that. So specificity is that relatable human behavior that we see, that we know, oh, I recognize that. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. So I want to define what agenda is, because we've got actor agenda, we've got character agenda. And what is the thing that links them? What is agenda? So it's basically the state that you or the character is in. So let's talk about actor agenda first. So physically, how are you feeling in your body? Maybe you had something for breakfast and you're not feeling so good. You have a stomach ache or something like that. Emotionally, maybe you just went through a breakup or whatever. I'm talking about kind of things that are typically negative experiences in actor agenda, because the positive usually support us in our work and support us to get us into character agenda. It's the kind of more negative experiences as an actor, as a human, that tend to get in our way, that create obstacles. And so it's about how do we transform those? How do we utilize those obstacles to help us in our performance? So that's why I'm focusing on some of the more negative experiences of actor agenda. What are you thinking? Oh, I really need this job, or I need to impress the casting director, or if I don't book this, my agent's going to drop me. Or it could be, I'm not right for the role. I don't know why they called me in. That kind of stuff. What's just happened moment before, maybe, like the famous Leah Michelle story where she went into the Glee audition and had just gotten into a car accident in the parking lot, like literally minutes before. What has just happened to you that might take you out of the moment and out of being present for the audition? So in the world, that's the world. Let's say those are examples of actor agenda. So examples of character agenda. How's the character feeling? What's happening in the scene that can give you information as to how the character is doing physically? So this involves a little bit of text analysis and you understanding what's happening in the scene. Maybe there's nothing remarkable, but maybe there is. Maybe you're a woman, you're in labor. It's going to be very, very specific as to how your body's feeling. Emotionally, what are you feeling in your heart? What's going on in the scene for the character that you can define emotionally as to how they're feeling. Mentally, what are some thoughts that the character is thinking? I find that that's a huge key for specificity, because if you understand what the character is thinking, you can actually, especially if there's pauses and when you're listening to the other character's dialogue in the scene, you can actually write out those thoughts. I often will do that and say, okay, I'm thinking this, and this, and then I rehearse that. And so when I'm doing the audition, I'm thinking those thoughts. It shows in your eyes. It shows very specifically. And you think that these are small things, but it gives it a level of texture and it gives it a relatability that is so nuanced and subtle that it makes your audition stand out. And in fact, I think it's really a whole bunch of those little things that add up to you booking versus doing one big thing that's going to blow someone out of the water. It's those little moments. I call them micro moments of specificity that create a bookable audition. So you can also ask yourself, I missed this, but going back to actor agenda, when was the last time you saw the casting director or the producer, or, that kind of thing? That also might inform your actor agenda. For character agenda, when was the last time that your character saw the other characters in the scene? What had happened? That could be a moment before with the character. There's also a moment before for yourself as the character. What was I doing just before I started this scene? What were the lines that preceded the start of this scene? So all those kinds of things contribute to agenda. So again, I'm going to reiterate, the more that you are aware of, in tune, have studied, prepared, character agenda, the more specific you're going to be, the more fun it's going to be, the less self-conscious you're going to be. So the more that you're in the actor agenda and you're focused on that and not the character agenda, the more self-conscious you'll be, the more general you'll be, the less fun you'll have. We all know what that's like. So let's go to the next slide. So a lot of people say to me, how do I get rid of actor agenda so that I'm more in character agenda? Well, you don't. You can't. You're always going to have actor agenda. In fact, you want to have actor agenda, because if you forget, there's some part of your being that has to be aware that you're acting. Otherwise there's a membrane that we have between sanity and insanity. We have to know on some level that what we're doing is acting, right? We're sane. So that's good. You need that. And that protects you. That protects your instrument. That protects your vitality, your longevity as an actor. We've all heard stories about actors that got so immersed in their character agenda that it was really difficult for them during shooting and after shooting for a while, where they couldn't quite get the energy of that character out. And one of the ways to protect yourself is to be very aware of the difference between the agenda and being able to practice those boundaries. I look at it like what's figural and what's ground. And this is sort of, you've all seen those paintings of the woman where if you look at it one way, it's an old woman. And if you look at it one way, it's a young woman. There's all sorts of paintings like that, or drawings, right? So something that's figural is something that we see in the foreground, and something that's, we'll say ground, is something that's in the background. So what we want to do is we have actor agenda, we have character agenda. We want to make the character agenda in the foreground and the actor agenda, we want it to recede so that it's always there, but it's in the background. You come out of the scene and you're back to this, or you're at wherever you want to, however you want to modulate that. If you're working on a film, you may want to keep the character agenda going between takes and all that. But what I'm saying is you need to know specifically how to transform that, how to create the character agenda in the foreground. So I say use the actor agenda. You want to utilize it. It's there for you, not against you. And I think that that's where we run into trouble as actors, is we go, I'm not in the right state for the character agenda. I'm in trouble. Oh my God, what am I going to do? I'm too nervous. I'm this, I'm that. And then that reinforces actor agenda. Then you're even further into more actor agenda, right? Instead of going, okay, I'm in this state. How is that in any way supportive of where my character is at? In what ways are they feeling what I'm feeling right now? Or could have happened to them what happened to me just now? Or some way of, that's the creativity. That's what makes an actor stand out, is how they're able to bring themselves fully to a character. And it's leverage and it's practice. It takes practice. It's not something you're going to be great at right away if you've never done that before. But if you practice it over time, you'll see that it's very exciting to do. And you begin to gain more confidence because you realize, wait, I'm not in my own way. Anything that happens for me is going to be a gift, and it's going to serve me in my performance. And it's incredibly freeing. So don't try to get rid of it. Use it. Prep your work. Do your text analysis. Know the scene. Understand what's going on for the character, so that if you do in the middle of the scene, in the middle of audition, especially when it was in person, when it used to be in person, but if you come out of it, you have thoughts and images that can take you back into the character agenda. So we're all human. We're going to get pulled out of character agenda from time to time, and that's not a problem. It's just having the techniques to pull us back into the character agenda that's important. So I'm going to talk in a moment about what Dream of Dreams is. But this is where I would stop and go, hey, anybody have any questions? Oh, it's so silent. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. Okay, so I'm going to talk about choices, and this is going to lead into what I'm going to talk about, which is Dream of Dreams. So we all know, we've always heard in acting classes, choices, the actors' choices, the choices they make, casting directors, oh, they make such great choices, or, oh, I didn't really think their choices were good, whatever that is. What is exactly a choice? Now, I know a lot of this stuff, a lot of you will already know, so I'm kind of reminding you or redefining it in different terms. But we're taught in acting school and acting classes to make choices based on the text. What does the character want? Well, I want them to respect me, or, I want them to give me back the money that they owe me. All those kinds of things. And it's correct. That's what's going on in the scene, and you need to know that. But it's not a tool. It's not something that's going to really engage your body, engage your heart, your mind, your soul, to bring you into the scene. And I always use plumber references for some reason. That's my reference for as an analogy or metaphor. So if I call a plumber in to fix my sink, right? they're going to have a bunch of tools. They're going to have a wrench. They're going to have maybe a welding tools. They're going to have the snake. They're going to have all sorts of things. Now, depending on what's going on, they're going to pull out the tools, right? So like a plumber, we as actors have tools, right? There's all sorts of tools. There's so many different, there's Meisner, there's Strasberg, there's, method acting. There's, there's improv techniques. There's all sorts of things that can help us shape our choices, shape our scenes. So one of the tools that I like to use is what I call rational versus emotional logic. And we have been taught rational choices, like I'm fighting for respect. I want to encourage you to take a look at making irrational but emotionally logical choices. So let's go to the next slide. So what is emotional logic? All right. Emotional logic is things that we can relate to that seem a little nuts, and it's kind of magical thinking. So we all have it, but as adults, we've all been trained out of it. We've been told, don't, that's silly. Don't do that. But as kids live in it. So, as an adult, let's say as an actor working in LA, you pass by the Paramount lot and you think, wow, what if Spielberg drives out right now and sees me and goes, yeah, you're the one I want for my next movie, right? Completely irrational. Is it emotionally logical? Yes. You're an actor working in LA. You're going to dream. So it's those dreams that fuel us. It's not that, walking by Paramount and going, wow, I hope one day I get to audition for something on this lot. Like, yeah, that may give you a little bit of juice, but go bigger, go as big as you can. Those are emotionally logical choices that will fuel your performance. They're irrational, visceral. You'll feel it in your body. They evoke your imagination. They usually come from some sort of imagination or imaginary circumstances that you want. They're usually ego-based, especially in comedy. But the ego-based ones are the much more interesting ones. Like, I want to make sure that everybody has enough to eat in the world. That is incredibly altruistic. Completely support that. And if you dig a little deeper, if you find the ego-based rationale behind that motivation, that's what would fuel your acting. That will connect you with the viscera. I don't know if that makes sense, but I'll come back to that. The choices have to make sense for the story. So if you pick an emotionally logical choice in a scene, it needs to make sense. Obviously, it needs to be. You have to create the right tone, the right emotion for the story. So it's based. You start with the understanding the story, and then you start making these choices. This is a tool for you to connect to yourself and to connect to the other characters in the scene. And like any choices, there's no right or wrong. There's just more effective and less effective. It's like the plumber can come in and he can use he or she can use, or they, I gotta get my pronouns right, can use a wrench, right? But what if they actually need to use a hammer to loosen the bolt first? There's just, I don't know if that's a good analogy, but they might use a snake and it's not the right length snake, or, whatever. You need to find the right tool to match it. Sometimes people will pick, especially with sense memory stuff, will pick a memory and they've picked a jackhammer of a memory when all they needed was like a little tiny hammer, and so they've gone into their psyche and picked something that was way too emotionally loaded for something that just needed a small, hint of emotion. It's knowing the right tool, knowing the right thing to pick. So, if you go into the right imagination, the right piece of magical thinking that you have, then that's going to inform the scene in the most effective way. So it's about knowing what to choose, not what the choices are only, but what to choose, how to choose it. Usually when people make a choice that works, you'll usually know, because I always see it with students, because they'll always start laughing and there's a recognition and they start to light up. That's when you know you've made the right choice. There's a sense of joy, or like titillation around it. And then I'll say, are you excited to play this choice? And they'll be, yeah. It's just an exciting thing to do, to engage your body and go, okay, I'm ready to go. If you're kind of like lukewarm about it, then no, go and find a different choice. Find something else that excites you. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Okay, so now dream of dreams, as I mentioned earlier. So knowing the character's dream of dreams is going to help you get into character agenda. That's what a few slides ago where I referenced dream of dreams. So you want it to be, the dream of dreams is irrational, but emotionally logical. It's an ego-based desire that the character has that is directed at the other characters in the scene. The more magical thinking you use, the better. The more visceral, the better. So the more that you can feel it and experience it in your body, the more alive and present you're going to feel, and then the more specific your acting is going to be. So you ask yourself how you want to impact the other character or characters in the scene. And it's usually something, like I said, ego-based. I want them to worship me. I want them to admit they were wrong and devote the rest of their lives to learning from me. It's something like that. And it's sort of how we secretly operate in real life. Like, how, do you want your significant other to change? I want them to be different. I want them to be like so-and-so, right? And even though we don't admit it, we know we're being irrational, we still want it. It's that when you can tap into that, the stuff that we were taught to feel guilty about or kind of crazy for thinking, that's your goal. That's where you want to be. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So another step in the process is to ask yourself, how will I feel if I get this? So if they're bowing down to me going, yes, you are so right, there should be like a little wave of energy up, like satisfaction that you need to let yourself indulge. We're taught to feel guilty about these things, but in acting for these things, if you let yourself have that enjoyment, you'll be able to celebrate that. And in fact, it's the people that resist this that I'm more concerned about than the people who embrace it. The people who embrace it, I'm like, yeah, you're acknowledging that you're human. This is great. Our characters are human. We are human. All right. And even if your character is an alien, they're going to be based on human logic. So we employ that in these choices. And that's what actually fuels the scene. I want them to forgive my debt and pay me in gratitude for my incredible work and say how much I changed their life. So what you want the character to say at the end of the scene, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you came into my life. I can't believe how wrong I was about this. Please let me stay by your side and I just want to learn everything from you, and I will do everything to support your life. I am here at your beck and call. Like crazy stuff like that. I want to scratch their face off with my gaze and make them beg for me to stop, right? And so that will help. If that's a tool that you use, it's a scene in which your glare is going to inform the scene, right? It's going to be like just intensity. So if the scene calls for that kind of intensity, having the thought and the dream of dreams is going to create that specific performance. Otherwise, you're working on exteriors. You're going, how do I contort my face to show intensity? It'll look kind of weird. It has to be fueled by an internal process. There has to be something specific that you're thinking in order to create specific perception, specific output. So the more specific you can get in your work, the more specific you're going to look. So getting specific thoughts like this that are emotionally logical is going to make not only you present, it's going to give you something to focus on, and it's going to make the work come alive. Again, another example, I want them to ask me for permission for everything they do for the rest of their lives. Again, outlandish, nothing that we'd ever admit to publicly. And it's an amazing tool. Okay. So let's go to the next slide. Is there a next slide? I can't remember. Let's see. Let's find out. There. Thanks, and any questions? That's our next slide. So back to specificity. It is something that's in our daily lives. Every second, every moment, our real lives are specific. It's about recreating that in our work. And these are some tools to get in there and output that specificity by creating specificity internally in terms of what's going on for you. So any questions? That's your cue, Ben.
That is, I love it. Well, I so appreciate what you're sharing, because I, in my own acting career, have heard often from casting and others, be specific. And to me, it also is related to, in television, for example, but also film, like we hear, your audition needs to match the tone of the show.
Yes.
And I remember hearing that, for so long, and thinking like, okay, well, what does that mean? Like, how do I do that? And so maybe that's a place to start. I have lots of thoughts here, but like, how does this relate? Because I think it does, as a way into that note that we get, like match the tone of the show, match the script. How does this relate to that?
There's so much I could talk about with this, because, I had to sort of just narrow in on sort of what I call like the heart of what I teach around specificity. But I have, in my acting classes that I teach, I give out a worksheet. It's called Steps to Specificity. And the number one step on there is tone. So I can wave a script by your face and you'll know whether it's a multicam comedy or a single cam something, right? Without even reading it. And you'll know something about the tone just from how it's formatted, being multi-space versus single space. So we have to get the tone, much like a dancer understands tone. Like dancers usually don't just specifically only dance one kind of dance, right? Yeah. Even hip hop artists today who are hip hop artists, dancers, will go and take some contemporary classes or ballet. All of those different types of dance genres, if I can call them that, have a different tone. They're going to have a different kind of rhythm. They're going to have a different kind of vocabulary in their movement. And a dancer will be able to inhabit whatever the tone is of that particular dance. It's the same thing for us as actors, right? We have to be able to inhabit the tone, the vocabulary of these different types of genres. And the way to do that is by watching those shows, right? Casting directors will say to me, it's shocking how many actors will come in for an audition or put an audition on tape and not have seen the show. Yeah. And there's no excuse for that. You have to understand the tone. You have to be able to watch it, kind of take it into your body, understand, oh, okay, this is Sorkin. I'm going to be speaking a lot faster. It's going to be very dialogue based, or this is very there's not a lot of vocabulary in dialogue. There's a lot of vocabulary physically. Understanding what that means and how you're going to approach it, how you're going to dress, what kind of acting clothing in your mind, not clothing, but how you're going to dress tonally. So it's super, super important. And then let's say, even if it's a pilot or if it's a feature, obviously you don't have other work to look at from that project. But you have the names of the people that have written it. The name of the director. You'll know the names of the casting directors. Like you'll have a sense of the team, and you can look at other work that they've done, and you'll understand their tone, right? You'll say, oh, they do this kind of work, Yeah.
Well, and the other piece to me that comes up is even, taking as much of this information as we can and making specific choices. My experience, or when I've, sat in on casting sessions or watched things that my friends are doing, when actors make those specific choices, even if it's a little bit off from something, my experience is like, oh, I casting producers go, oh, I can work with that. Yeah. They're being specific. I can give them a different specificity. Hey, actually, that we get these notes, right? Try it this way, whatever. But in order to have that, you have to start with something specific. If you start with vague, I'm generally angry. It's like, I don't know. They don't really get it. But even if you make a wrong specific choice, I go, oh, I can work with that.
Yeah. But what they want to see is what often casting or producers or directors, when they'll say, well, I want them to make choices, what they're saying is, I want them to make specific choices. I want them to be specific, because if they can see that you have the ability to be specific, that means that you're going to have the ability to be specific with a different choice if they give it to you.
Yeah. To that end, I know a lot of actors share the challenge of a lack of feedback in self-tape auditions, right?
Yeah.
I'm doing this what feels like in a vacuum. And acting in front of a camera lens versus a live person, though even in the room, there's often a camera there as well. Any tips on how we overcome this lack of feedback?
Yes, I have an answer that people probably won't like that much. But no, I mean, yes, the way to do it is to get really good at knowing whether you are being specific.
Mm-hmm.
And, like I put an audition on tape yesterday, and I could feel that there was the beginning of the scene. I didn't feel as specific about my thoughts as I know I could have, and as I had in the first take that I did it. And I watched it back and went, yeah, I saw that. So to be able to assess yourself accurately is key. And it takes practice. There's a lot of people that say, oh, I don't like watching myself on camera. I'm like, then what are you doing as an actor? That is your job. It's like inviting the plumber over and him saying, I don't want to turn the water on. I don't like to look at my work. It's like, no, that's your job. You need to see if it worked. You need to see if it worked. And so I think really when I read into the subtext of those comments, it's that I'm afraid I suck and I don't want to see myself suck. Well, you know what? Go ahead and suck really badly so that you can learn how to not suck. If you
Yeah.
really love acting, like I remember that's when things changed for me. As soon as I said, I love this so much, I'm willing to be bad at it. And as soon as I embraced that, that was it. I didn't mind watching myself because I wanted to see if I was making mistakes so that I could improve. It was a completely different mindset. So, developing the ability to self-assess without even watching yourself back. We don't get playback anymore. It used to be there was a day when you could watch yourself back on a monitor on set. But we don't have that. So we need to be able to do a take and go, wait, you know what? I was off on that line. I felt I want to do this. I want to do this shot again. I want to do this take again, because you can self-assess. So that's how you do it. And if you're not having fun, if you're feeling self-conscious, do it again, because that's going to be your first clue that you're an actor agenda and that you're probably not being as specific as you can be.
I really resonate with what you said about that skill set translating to being on set. And what I hear is that this skill set is valuable, certainly in, if for whatever reason we're in a self-tape situation and we're not able to get that feedback, it's helpful. But even if what I hear in that is, even if you're in the room, being able to have that skill set, and same with being on set, to know, oh, you know what, I actually have something that could be a more effective take. And I know that, and I can ask for that on set and then give them something that is different. And they go, oh, wow, I'm so glad we did that. And developing that skill as a performer, whether it's for a self-tape, whether I'm in the room with casting, and that same thing, right? Actually, hey, I'm going to take that one more time, and knowing yourself enough to know that like it's actually different enough. And it's challenging. I can speak for myself, knowing the difference between I'm just being critical, or it's a small change versus, hey, actually, we need to do this again. Because I could do like, oh, well, there's this one tweak, and they go, that was basically the same thing you just did.
Well, yeah, we have to, exactly. I think you hit the nail on the head. It's you have to understand the difference between being self-critical in this sort of negative way and being self-assessing, really assessing accurately. You don't want a plumber that's going to go, oh God, I turned the wrench one too many times. I'm such a bad person. You want the plumber that goes, oh, you know what? I could do this better. Hang on. Let me get this other wrench. I'm going to fix this there. That's what I want. We don't have to be perfect, right? That pressure on ourselves is too much. And believe me, I know this as a recovering perfectionist, it can really shut you down. So the idea is to be excited about the learning process, that is the outcome. And I know, because having worked as a director on the show that I was on Nickelodeon. I've been directing now, and I know firsthand that as a director, you definitely are watching performance, but you're also watching a lot of other things, especially in TV. And it's easy to kind of go, okay, yeah, no, that was great. You got the performance. And then the performer might go, no, I have this other idea. And you see it and you go, oh, yeah, that's great. So the director has their eyes on so many different things. If you're the professional, you're in charge of your performance. If there's something you feel like you can add from a self-assessment context, not self-critical, then that's great. You can ask for that. Sometimes they don't have time. They got to move on.
Yeah.
But
well, and the tools you shared about, my performer, the actor agenda and the character agenda, for those who are wondering, like, okay, how would I even begin to develop that distinction? It sounds like to me like that would be a good way in, right? Is this coming from my own actor agenda, or is there a character agenda piece? And that is where some of that assessment can come from is, oh, you know what? I'm just being self-critical. This is my actor thing. I've had a rough morning and my partner and I were having tension, and that's actually where it's coming from.
Well,
or the character has this want that wasn't happening and I wasn't infusing that.
Well, I think this, I don't know. I hope this doesn't come off as hokey, but I think that a way to assess that is going, okay, am I coming at this from my love for the craft or my fear of not being good enough? So, is it that I really want to inhabit this character more? And I think I can, is it you're going to something, you're going to the character and the fulfilling of the character agenda? Or are you moving away from, oh, I don't want to be humiliated. I don't want to, I'm working in fear of something. So you can ask yourself that motivation and be honest with yourself, and it'll help you. But usually if we're coming from a place of love for the craft and a love for this character and playing that, you'll know it. You feel it inside. You're open, you're inclusive in a certain way. When you're coming from fear, it's contractive. It's coming from a not a great experience. So you'll know the difference. Just kind of it's about awareness. It all starts with awareness.
Well, the thing I want to reiterate that you just said, that it's a good reminder for me as a performer, I'm taking this away, is I think as performers and creatives, we often have so much experience and training and practice tuning into our emotional realities, right? That's what we're getting hired for, is our ability to translate that. And the trap for me, certainly, and I think for a lot of performers I talk to, is when we move away from that emotional piece and now I'm in the intellectual exercise of, did I do it right? Is that what they wanted? Is that, and what I'm taking away from what you're saying is, hey, actually that skill as a performer that you've developed around tapping into your emotions, and did that feel, yeah, you know what, actually that felt, I don't even know what I did, right? I hear this all the time, or I've had that in my own, I'm like, I don't actually know what I did because I was feeling it, and that's okay. That's actually good information. And to not then get stuck in the, oh, but did I do it right? Or was I perfect on that line? Or, then we move into the intellectual side.
I heard, I think it was De Niro. I should find out, but it was someone that said, I don't, like, most of the time I'm not feeling what the character's feeling. I'm playing the scene, but am I feeling the feelings that they're feeling? Like, sometimes, but not always. Like, it's a lot to ask ourselves to feel something. But what we can control, we can't control how we're going to feel. We can control our intent. We can control what we're thinking as the character. We can we do that preparation and go, I am fighting for this. Like, it's like you're playing a game. Like when you play a board game, you know what the rules are. You know how to win. You need to know how to win the scene. You need to know what that's going to look like, how you're going to, get what you want. And if you focus on that, your body will follow, and often your emotions will follow. But it's not about controlling our emotions. We can't control those. Otherwise, that's actor agenda. We can control our intent. And it's like, when we play a board game, we know it's a game. We know it's not a real, like, we're not actually selling Park Place, and Monopoly. Right? We know it's a game, but boy, do we feel that intent about wanting to have Park Place. I got to buy that. Right? We know what that feels like. We're in the game. So it's like being in the game of the scene. And we can engage in that. That is where we have our choice and power, not in what feelings we're feeling.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm aware that I'm not a real estate mogul, but gosh, do I feel I gotta get Boardwalk, I gotta get Park Place.
Yeah.
I'm curious if you have any other thoughts on how to make self-tape auditions stand out. I mean, obviously, the big picture here of specificity is, at the heart of what you're saying there. But any other thoughts as a coach and someone who, is self-taping yourself, you're in the work yourself. Are
Yeah.
there other ways that we can make those self-tape auditions stand out?
In a good way. You can
Mhm.
make
Yeah,
it sound
yeah,
bad.
exactly.
You really, okay, this is so basic, but it's amazing how many people don't do it. Good audio, good video. You need to be seen, you need to be heard. You want to be framed kind of like I think how I'm being framed right now, but
Yeah,
kind of mid-chest, right? With a little bit of headroom. You get those things down, then the casting director will watch and not be distracted. Okay. So those are basic things, just technical stuff, which is easy to do. Um, having having your reader not be too loud because the readers often like I mean for me I have them on Zoom now on a monitor
yeah,
right behind me. So you want to make sure that they're not too louder than your voice. So modulating that. I always this is a secret, not secret, it's something I always share in class, but so if this is the camera, right? I will put if there's more than one camera in the scene, I'll put one character in the scene that I'm talking to, I'll put one character on one side of the camera, another character on the other side of the camera. Because this is kind of dynamic,
yeah,
right? If there's more, I might put one, you just want them a few inches from the camera, kind of like this. And then another one can be over here, here, right? It's you want to create the illusion that you're talking to people, and that will translate. Minimize props, but you can use props. Like if it's like if you have a glass and you're supposed to be drinking water, you'd use it. It's totally fine to do that stuff. There's no this will look weird. When you're at home, you've got a glass. Things like that. You can use props. But I think that still don't use all the dangerous things like a knife or guns. Even though it's on tape, it'll still make casting nervous. Um, so those are technical things. The way to stand out is by not trying to stand out. To be honest, because trying to stand out is actor agenda.
mm,
The way you stand out is by being fully immersed in character agenda. Know the tone, know what your know what the story is for the character, and finding organic ways that you can be specific in that life of the character. That will make you stand out. Find micro moments, find these little moments that give you some specificity, right? Like a lot of people will gloss over reactions. So someone says something on this side of the camera, someone says something on that side of the camera, and then they say something and it's like, wait, what? Right? As opposed to, right, which isn't as specific. Know those moments, know what the other characters are saying that will cause your character to kind of go, wait, what? Those Shurtleff calls it events, like those moments where there's new information in a scene. A lot of actors will skip over events. That's another step in that sheet that I talk about. I also talk about circling nouns. So go through your sides and circle all the nouns and look at what are my relationships to those nouns. Some of them will be irrelevant. You don't need to mark. Some of them you'll go, oh my gosh, I didn't even think of that. So there's a scene that I did yesterday, and it said something like, know what the book says, right? That was one of mine. Know what the book says, and so if I go, know what the book says, right, as opposed to know what the book says, right? It's more specific because I'm showing that I see the book and I'm, know what the book says, because that's how we do things, as
yeah,
opposed to know what the book says. So finding nouns, circling those nouns. If I hadn't circled the nouns, I wouldn't have known, oh, I need to mark, where is that book? That book's on the table. Oh, I can reference it. Little things like that. When you reference nouns that are in your environment, or even like, you know what, you hit my car, as opposed to, you know what, you hit my car. It makes all the difference in the world. And these are small things, but if you circle the nouns and go, what's my relationship? Where is that object or person or whatever that noun is? You know, where is it in time and space around me? All those things will help you create those micro moments, and those micro moments are what make you stand out, not you wearing yellow, you know, or you talking in an accent or any of those things. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does very much so. It's something I certainly work on, because to me that also, it puts you in the world, right? People go, oh, I could see them in the world. Oh, I get the tone. Oh, I just feel them in it. You know, what you're saying is the way to do that is to create that world, and that I am aware of, oh yeah, this person, place, or thing. I get over there, you did the thing. And it's like, oh yeah, all of a sudden that's how humans behave
That's how we,
in a space. And so now I'm watching and go, oh yeah, it feels like a real human in that
right.
world.
Yeah, it's amazing to me how many times we'll see something that says, I wouldn't do it, but you would, right? And people go, I wouldn't do it, but you would, right? As opposed to, I wouldn't do it, but you would. You know, just simple gestures. You know, you don't want to get, you know, I wouldn't do it, but you would. You know, you want to be organic about it. But it's amazing. Like if you circle those you circle them and go, oh, I need to reference that. I need to go like, yeah, I wouldn't do it, but you would. Then we get specific human behavior that we can relate to, and it's real.
Yeah. Last question is how might we create a connection with the casting director or the people involved, particularly in a self-tape world? I imagine there may be crossover to the same thing in person, right? I think that's still a good question if you're going into a room or self-taping, but obviously perhaps some extra hurdles when you're self-taping. How do we create that connection?
You know, I talked to a few friends of mine who are casting directors and asked them this, and here's what they said. Besides the number one thing, which is what I'm telling you, is do good work and be consistent with it. You know, you called in a number of times for an office. If you're consistently good, that's how you create connection. They appreciate people that will fulfill what they need. They have an agenda. Their agenda is, I got to find the right person. I want to look good to my employers, right? They're just like us. So do good work and be consistent, and they can rely on you and call you in. Aside from that, there's a few different ways. So let's say it's a casting director that you have a relationship with, that you know. In your slate, if they ask for a slate, you can just say something nice. Say hello, like, you know, hey, you know, thanks so much for calling me in. I really love this character because blah blah blah. You want to get to it. You don't want a whole 5-minute spiel. You want like 10 seconds, right? But you know, or let's say the character is born in Pittsburgh, and you go, you know, oh, hey, you know, so-and-so, thanks for calling in. Just so you know, I actually grew up in Pittsburgh, so I can really relate to this. My name is blah, 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 you know, whatever. So just give them a little piece of you in the slate if it's appropriate. If you do it all the time, or if it's not organic and it's clear what the actor agenda is, which is, I'm trying to stand out, it's going to backfire. But if you have something, you know, organically, in an organic way that you can connect, then you can do that. Another way, which may or may not work depending on what your reps do, is there is in the breakdowns, in breakdown, there's a message slot. You could, if you self-submit, you can put a little message in there, or you can have your agents put a little message in. But I would only do that if there's something relevant. You know, if you don't know the casting director, maybe it's something about how you resonate with the character, whatever. Or if you do know the casting director, you can say that too, but you can also say, hey, thank you again for calling me in again. I hope we get to meet in person someday. Like any little message to create that connection could work that way. There are some casting directors that are asking in the slate for you to say something about yourself, or ask, answer a question. Take advantage of that. Be natural, be you. And I asked my friend who had said this to me, I said, well, do you want people to do that? Like, what if who they are is really different from the character they're auditioning for, and they don't want to make it seem like, oh, I'm not right for the character, and you can, so in those cases, you can have a little hint of that character in that,
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to go all out in character. You want them to know who you are, but you can have that little flavor of the character in it.
Yeah.
And you can also, if it were me, let's say the character was radically different from me and I wanted to give them a message, I might do a tail slate, do it after the audition with that message, or I might just say, I'm not coming out of character to do the slate, but I just want you to know, blah, blah, blah. You know, it might go better to do that in a text message, like in the breakdowns, you know. But often we're not going out for characters that are intensely different than we are. But in those cases, you want to play it a little different.
Yeah.
So those are some ways, but really it's about being consistent, doing consistent good work, you know, stay up on what the casting directors are doing, keep a log of who you've auditioned for, so that if you are coming back a few times, or if you did audition for them a few years ago or a few months ago, you can mention it if you want. Again, just be organic, don't be obnoxious. You know, it's so easy for us to go into the actor agenda of like, I want them to notice me and like me, you know, and it's just like, no. They're not going to respond well to that.
Yeah, our monkey minds can get wrapped up in it, and coming back to the character piece of it, and sharing our art, our storytelling. Michael, any final thoughts or words of wisdom for those watching at home?
Just do your work, you know, like this is about process. You know, I always say to everybody, don't make acting the way that you pay your bills. Make it your art. And that way, it doesn't matter how much money you're making, you know that you can make choices and you can be in integrity with your art, as opposed to, I need this job, I need that job. It gets in the way, it adds to the actor agenda. Let's just say, if you add, I need money for this. It might be unrealistic for me to be saying that in some ways, but you know, I had a bread and butter job well into my career. And, you know, even when I was a series regular, you know, there were some things on the side that I had going that I knew, like, okay, I can keep that going later if I need to. You know, I always want to have something that is going to sustain you. And then that way you're freer. That's been my experience anyway.
Yeah. Beautiful. Well, Michael, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today, for everything that you've shared. For anybody watching, if you'd like to see Michael in action, very much so, you can catch him on the hit Nickelodeon TV shows Henry Danger and Danger Force. Michael, what's the best way to connect with you if people are interested in audition coaching or attending your classes or any of these other resources?
They can email me at info@michaeldcohen.com. You can go to my website. My teaching website is mdcohenstudio.com or michaeldcohenstudio.com. Both of those work. And I can help out with audition coaching. I have classes that are ongoing that are in Central LA, Melrose area. And those are ongoing. People can come and be a part of that if they want. And also they can reach me on Instagram. Actually DMs are a little hard on those, but I have a Facebook studio page, which is Michael D. Cohen Studio on Facebook. There's my Instagram, Michael D. Cohen. I'm on TikTok, I'm on Twitter, but yeah, the best way would be through email and through my website. So yeah, wonderful. Absolutely. I'm happy to be a resource.
Thank you. Well, so appreciate everything that you've shared today. As a reminder to everyone watching, this presentation is available as a replay on our YouTube channel, along with a whole library of programs on important and informative topics for our members. So feel free to rewatch it, share it with a friend, someone who's looking to up their audition game, send them this video. And on behalf of the whole team here at SAG-AFTRA, thank you so much for watching, with a special thanks to our regular viewers who've been tuning in each week for our educational live streams. And if you have ideas for topics you would like to see us cover, send an email to pteoe@sagaftra.org. And before we go, if you haven't already, please subscribe to SAG-AFTRA's YouTube channel to get updates on all of the content we are publishing. Thank you, everybody, so much, and have a wonderful day.